All right, I'm currently on the line with the Nameless, so I'm going to go ahead and give him the chance to introduce himself.
Hey yo, um, it's the Nameless. I'm a multi-instrumental musician, currently playing bass for Ghost Made Cellophane, and yeah, I'm glad to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. So, on this show, we always talk about where music started in our lives. So, give me a little bit of background of when you first encountered music. What was the situation like, and how did it impact you?
Man, I gotta say, when I was around two, three, somewhere around there, is when at least I remember first having some sort of interaction with music. For a while, my mom and I had lived with my grandparents, and they had they had a bunch of CDs, everything from Pink Floyd to the Beatles to Led Zeppelin. It was David Bowie, Bon Jovi. It was amazing, and I remember, being like 2, 3, 4 years old and being obsessed with Pink Floyd's The Wall. And it was, I don't know what it was about it, but there's just something about it that was just, it just captured me, and it just had me like in its like musical grasp. And, I've just never been able to let go of it. And, like later on in life, I was introduced to like other like heavier bands like Metallica, 3 Days Grace, Linkin Park, Slipknot, all that stuff. And it's like ever since that, it was just like
Okay.
it's
Well, let's focus on that formative period of time, connecting with the wall and trying to figure that out. Was that about the time that you also kind of decided that you were going to try to learn an instrument as well?
oh no, 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 no. That didn't come until years after, because that was when I was only like 3 years old when I had, you know, first heard that album.
Well, these days you never know.
Yeah, fair
um,
point.
let's kind of progress a little bit. You found that connection, and then as time progressed, you found yourself playing some or listening to some heavier music. When was it about when you realized that you wanted to emulate that and start making your own music, or at least learn an instrument?
It's weird because those were like two different like points in time. When I was like nine or so, I had just joined my elementary school's um like a concert band that they had, and I was playing saxophone. And then I remember, like a year or two down the line, um I had I had access to like YouTube and the internet and stuff. And I remember watching like because I was really into Coldplay at the time, and I remember watching like some of the music videos, and I was like, wait a minute, what if Pink Floyd had music videos? Like, do they have any? And so I just looked it up, and I saw some like live footage, and it was like man, I want to do that. And so I think really it wasn't until like seeing some of that um live concert footage from some of their shows that I was like really like, I want to be there. I want to be up on stage.
Sure. And so that's when you kind of made the connection that in order to do that, you had to learn an instrument so you could participate in band kind of thing. I get the sense that that's where you were going.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. And so like I had told my mom like, hey, I want a bass guitar. And specifically with that, um, like why bass is mainly because of the fact that there is something there's something really interesting about it. Like I remember my dad had like this video game on his one of his PSPs is called Rock Band Unplugged. And how it how it worked is like you were able to like play all of the instruments like at the same time and like switch between them. And then anytime I had switched over to the bass, I was just like, what is that? Like I had no clue really what it was. And and I just got like so fascinated with it. And so I told my mom when I was like 10, like, hey, I really want a bass guitar for my birthday. And then she was like, maybe on your 13th birthday. And so that came around, and then she's like, well, oh crap, now what do I do? So she had went to a pawn shop, got a bass and an amp, and yeah, I had gotten that for my 13th birthday, and I just haven't been able to put the thing down.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about how you sunk your teeth into it. Obviously, you kind of got warmed up to it with the rock band setting and, having the, at least, the shape of the instrument in your hand. Tell me a bit about how you actually, began to learn it on more of like a amateur musician scale. Did you just play along with songs that you know, or did you take like private lessons? Tell me about that process.
Mainly started with some like just like some YouTube videos on just like, like, oh, how to play this song and stuff. And so I remember the first riff that I had learned was, I'm pretty sure it was Come Together by the Beatles, because during that time I was like really diving deep into like the Beatles discography. And so I was just like, yo, I want to learn this song. And so it was like that main riff that I learned, and then from there on it was a mix of like like ultimate guitar tabs, stuff like that. And then um a couple years into playing, I eventually had um learned how to like play like with a song, like say like I was like learning how to play the bass track from the song, like say let's do Surfacing by Slipknot. I would listen to it and I would try to like listen for the bass in that mix. And sometimes with the technology we have now, you're able to like go and like listen to like the isolated tracks, but I a lot of times that didn't wasn't really an option. So I was listening for the bass track, and I would you know try and play what was on the song, and then that's how I had learned a good number of songs actually.
Okay, so tell me about the next steps then. So once you kind of felt comfortable with the instrument enough to start auditioning and looking for bands and stuff, how did you go about that process?
Well, I hadn't moved up to Minneapolis or really any city at all until just last year. I'd been stuck in a small town in Illinois, and the most amount of like being able to like play with other people that I could get was through like my high school's music groups, being like the concert band, pit orchestra, jazz band, marching band, even all that stuff. I did saxophone for the concert band, but like everything else, I played my bass for jazz band, pit orchestra, marching band, all of that stuff. And it was it was nice to be able to, kind of like have that like setting, like where I'm playing an instrument that I really enjoy playing, you know, and I'm playing with a group of people. But I always wanted something a little more intimate, and it really wasn't until I had moved up here to Minneapolis and got in touch with John from Ghost Made Cellophane, and joined the band. And it wasn't until then that I really got that intimate band experience.
Okay, so well, that brings us up to where you are now. So tell me about Ghost Made Cellophane. How did it come together? And then what are you guys up to?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the last part?
And what are you guys up to? Like shows, recording? I know you guys are doing videos and too, but just a little bit of like the creative process that you guys are in.
Yeah, so the band had actually been around for a while ago. It's been around for a while now. It was originally under the name Plastic Me down in LA, and then John had moved up here. The pandemic happened, and it really wasn't until um, a couple years ago that it changed over to Ghost Made Cellophane. And so there's like a lot of history with the band that, I wasn't present for. It wasn't because it wasn't until just this past December, January, somewhere around there that I had actually joined. And so now we're, doing shows, we're recording music, making music videos. And right now, though, we're on a bit of a halt for doing shows because, he's going to be going on vacation here in a few. And um, so, plus also, we don't have a drummer, and having a drummer is kind of essential in order to have a metal show. So if there's any drummers listening, hit us up. And we are currently in the process of mixing and mastering a new song for our, I guess, I guess you could say debut EP as Ghost Made Cellophane. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned that you're currently working on material and that you have had shows, played a bunch throughout the summer. Obviously, right now you're looking for a drummer so you can continue to do that. But once you have that drummer, what do you kind of see into the future? What are you guys gonna do?
The way that we've talked about it with each other, we're trying to hit 100 shows as fast as possible. Well, not like rapidly, like 6 shows a week, but like we're trying to get there quickly because we had 15 shows over the past June, July, over the past 3-4 months, somewhere around there. And so I hope in the future to continue that that progression of doing a few shows each month, and then hopefully being able to start doing like festivals or even like Rockfest come next year.
Sure, awesome. Yeah, I mean that's a completely reasonable ambition. I think it's possible. Um, so, what do you think has kind of kept you motivated within music to continue to make and participate in music?
Really, I think it's just I. It's a really a mix of things. Number one, it's really been a dream of mine for almost as long as I can remember to be some sort of like musician, whether it be like being like a successful touring musician or even just like having like a primary career and then just doing like something on the side. And not only that, but another thing is I have a very emotional and close connection to music due to the fact that it's saved me countless times. And I feel being a musician has given my life some sort of purpose and reason.
Awesome. I think as a musician, a lot of people kind of have that, or at least a similar relationship with music. So that, that's definitely relatable is what I mean there. So what are like your social media links? Where can people find Ghost Made Cellophane or you individually and follow along with what you got going on?
Yeah. So we're pretty much on everything for music. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, YouTube, SoundCloud. We're on all of that. And then um we've also got a bunch of social media. You could find Ghost Made Cellophane on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube again. And then you can also find my music account, the Nameless, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Not yet YouTube, but hopefully in the future I'll get around to setting something up. I just don't have much material for that yet. And yeah, but if if you're interested in seeing the chaos and carnage that is Ghost Made Cellophane, give us a follow on those. And then we've got 3 singles out currently: The Reckoning, Savior, and Convulsions. Again, streaming everywhere. And then we've got music videos for each of those songs currently on YouTube. And our newest single, Convulsions, the music video for that, is almost at 15,000 views.
Awesome. That's not small numbers. Congratulations. All right. So I always like to give the people I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you want other people to hear?
You know, one of my favorite musicians, Peter Steele, is a quote from a Type O Negative song that I always try to live by. It's better to burn quickly and bright than slowly and dull without a fight. So yeah, if you're gonna, you know, live, make the most out of it, have a strong positive impact on people, and don't just laze away the days. Don't just sleep it all away. Get up and do something productive. Have meaning in your life, in someone else's life, and go out there and do what you love.